the most interesting part is what's on the screen for them, because their schedule, they open up with Coach Fran Brown and the other orange, Syracuse, in the ATL, in the Benz on August the 30th.
How thankful are they that Kyle McCord is gone?
Amazing that you would say that, but yes, that is true.
I mean,
Syracuse has to play him and Jackson Meeks. They got to replace some weapons on offense. The running back, it's really good. So yeah, but then you got Georgia is the third game, which is
that's way early. That's not normal. Usually you play them later in the season.
Yeah, they flipped them in Florida, and then you've got at Bama, and then at Florida later in the year. Those are kind of the four, what I would say, determine your season type games, determine your playoff potential fate. And by the way, that Syracuse game is now a ginormous game for them because of the other parts of their schedule and where you can't trip up in the SEC because you're playing basically the same schedule you played a year ago. It's just flipping home and away.
Well, the good thing about their schedule a year ago is it wasn't that tough. Like, it was pretty favorable. And next year, Florida's going to be better. We saw that. Like, Florida's going to be better. But you didn't throw in ETSU and UAB and, listen, Vandy ain't nothing to slouch out. Obviously, that game was pretty competitive, last year. But you got Georgia, you got Bama. Those are huge deals. You'll take Mississippi State. You'll take Arkansas. Those are good matchups to have in the SEC. Kentucky is a good matchup. Oklahoma will be very interesting to see what they are next year. I mean, we don't know what that is. And obviously New Mexico State ain't setting the world on fire. So the schedule.
Oklahoma is probably one that I even could have thrown in there because now with Mateer, and if they have an offensive system that is
we know they'll have defense. We absolutely. I can see Oklahoma taking a few steps. And this is the problem, man. This is the problem with the SEC and the way they recruit and the coaches that are really, really good and the depth of the league. It only takes Oklahoma getting a quarterback, and you better watch out. Like, what Texas is. What Georgia is. What Alabama is. Like, what the upper echelon teams. Florida's got a quarterback. Like, Lagway is their dude. That changes every freaking thing. Like, so they got to play, in Gainesville. They here's the thing, Brent. They easily could have lost to Florida last year. Easily. So you're going to have to get better. Florida's going to be better. So it's
and not they struggled on the road
big
last
time
year.
Struggled
that
on
was
the road.
A thing. So
really, it was their defense.
All right. So we'll finish up with something that Wes and I cooked up in terms of terms. All right. So if we're looking at Tennessee next year and we're talking about them as a potential playoff team and they're cooking, that we're going to go cooking versus cooked.
Okay.
Or cooking. Don't add the G. I don't know however you want to term that. So if they're cooking next year, why is that? What's the reason?
If they're cooking next year, took the next step because the talent is undeniable. Like, we've seen him do his debut was one of the best debuts I've ever seen. Like, it was incredible. To me, Nico has to take that next step, be in the conversation for all SEC and be a guy that is in the conversation for, a great quarterback across college football.
All right. So that's, if they're cooking, that's the reason. If they're cooked and they're looking at single digit wins, non-playoffs, that sort of realm, what do you think it is?
I think their offensive line is the same as it was this year. It's not very good, and their defense took a step backwards because their defense kept them in games. Their defense won a lot of football games for them a year ago. So I think if their defense returns to what we saw the last couple years before this season, then they'll be in trouble. Like that's got to stay not at the super elite level, but it's got to be at a high level.
Offensive line struggles was what I wrote down. In the end, do you think they are a playoff team next year?
Man, I feel like I did about them this year. Like, I feel like they're going to be one of those teams that are in the mix. I very much feel like the hardest part is always like, you don't know what you don't know about the other conferences and how many teams they're going to get in. But I feel pretty confident with that schedule that Tennessee, they're going to beat the teams they should, most of the teams they should, and then they're going to lose. They're going to stumble once or twice. And if you stumble twice and you have a big win or two and you're not in the SEC championship game, you can do just what you did this year and get in the college football playoff. So I absolutely think they're one of the top, 15 contenders to get into a playoff spot. Do you, sir?
Yeah, I do. And especially for the fact they get Georgia home early. I think that matters. Breaking in a new quarterback for Georgia. It's not like you're halfway through the season, you got your guy and you're confident, that sort of thing. I think getting them at home early is a big time sort of potential win for them.
At Bama, at Florida are tough.
Oklahoma. I think they can get to where. So if you said, hey, Syracuse, Georgia, Alabama, even Arkansas at home is not necessarily the greatest thing, but Syracuse, Georgia, Alabama, Oklahoma, Florida, and you get 3 of those games, and you're 10-2 again, you're in the playoff. That's you got to get 3 of those and not trip up anywhere else. That's what got them. Arkansas got them last year, so we'll see. Yeah,
what's crazy is last year we were discussing 3 lost teams. So
yeah,
at the end of the season, that was very much in the conversation. Like Tennessee wasn't even a debate, which is crazy. They weren't even talked about. Like they were guaranteed to be in. And I think with Nico coming back and another year in the system, I mean, Tennessee fans can expect 10 wins from Heupel because that's what he does. And 10 wins, you're right there in the mix, ready to compete for a national championship. And again, if they played SMU first round or had a different draw, like they could have been a team that won a playoff game. You know what I'm saying? Like they could have done that a year ago. Like it's just they played Ohio State.